With season 3 of House of the Dragon fast approaching, I'm finding myself more nervous with each coming day, because I can't help but notice that Abigail Thorn is part of the promo team. I can't help but remember the times of Philosophy Tube, and I can't help but think about what could have been. In this episode, I'll explain who Abigail Thorn is, her history with Philosophy Tube, what could have been, and what was, and more specifically, wasn't said about certain important topics. And I'll also explain about House of the Dragon, its connection to Game of Thrones, the character that she'll be playing, and what that really means in the wider scope of things. And I'll give you all of the context you need to know if you haven't seen a single episode of any of the series or their sequels. Because I'm sure you'll also have seen Abigail Thorn plastered all over the promo and be wondering why on earth she has her arm out and she's flexing. Although power to her, she looks pretty cool, let's be so for real. Let's start with Philosophy Tube, a channel that Abigail Thorn originally started way back because the UK originally tripled the fees for people to get degrees. I remember just about myself being, I think I was the year before this happened, but then my husband was like a year after, because my husband's 2 years younger than me. And basically the fees and the loans involved, the maintenance loans tripled. So originally Abigail Thorn started Philosophy Tube to give away her philosophy degree for free through video essays and covering those topics in long form content on YouTube. That grew and compounded, and Philosophy Tube eventually became one of the most loved channels of BreadTube in its highlights, in its heyday. Okay, we will have more to say about that at the end of this section, but for now, Philosophy Tube was absolutely loved, and its fandom was incredible. Some point through that era, so we're talking kind of post-COVID kind of times, Abigail Thorn joined the Nebula crew. Nebula is a different streaming service, and we saw some kind of shift with a few popular YouTubers in that BreadTube space moving to Nebula, and then quite rightly, understandably, somewhat, people could argue, YouTube became the kind of secondary main platform, and it was kind of like a shift to get everyone to buy a Nebula subscription. Now, at the same time, we also saw Abigail continue and kind of push forward in her acting career. She originally, as part of the Nebula kind of ecosystem, where they can obviously get funding a little bit easier because they have this trust of their larger platform, she originally worked on The Prince, which was like a play that actually happened in the UK. Now, I remember covering this or being online when this was happening. Because the sales of the tickets to The Prince, a play she was in and wrote, was involved in, produced, you could say, because of the fandom behind her, it sold a lot of tickets. So this really kind of launched her acting career, which she's admitted herself.
The Prince. So The Prince is a play that I wrote and that I appeared in London, and that a lot of you came to see. It was funded by a streaming service called Nebula. They were our producers. And so many of you bought Nebula subscriptions and bought tickets to come and see The Prince, that even though it was kind of a gamble, a streaming service paying for a play, we were actually making profit on The Prince before rehearsals even ended.
But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before the Nebula side of things happened, Philosophy Tube, in its heyday, saw millions of views per video essay, and there would be a buzz in the community when she released something new. High art, amazing set design is what she was known for, fantastic thought-provoking video essays. I think one of her best to date is the one she did on Jordan Peterson's book at the time that was newly released, and his ideologies kind of breaking things down. And this was at the peak of Jordan Peterson's movement against trans people.
Is gender something in you, or is it a relation between you and other people? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, what are its pronouns? Peterson's always talking about being mindful of what you pay attention to, what story are you telling yourself, and phenomenology is a great base on which to build that, because in theory, if you change the story you tell yourself, change the meanings you see in the world, then you can change the world.
However, like we've seen with kind of the iconic original BreadTube in its entirety, the Philosophy Tube kind of started to slip. There are many reasons as to why that people summarize. I personally see there's a definite change after October 7th, Israel and Palestine.
Philosophy Tube has also not really said anything. There is a small reference to Gaza about 20 minutes in a video about how death changes your perspective, but she lumps that in with like the COVID pandemic and climate change as like these mass death things. So it's not very specific. It's like a throwaway line. And then I was just looking what like their audiences thought. So I just went on the Philosophy Tube subreddit. I typed in Gaza. Someone posted a year ago. This could be even longer, like a year and a half ago. Just curious because I haven't seen any mention of it on her Twitter despite her left-wing politics that feature heavily in her videos. I know many popular leftist creators haven't been talking too much about it, but I know people like ContraPoints have at least done a tweet or two expressing their views on it. Anything from Abby?
This was further highlighted when the Tabernacle released a video about ContraPoints, H1 Guy, and Philosophy Tube, saying that, you know, they have this new nebula push. They have a large platform on YouTube, and yet they are really not critical about Israel and Israel's actions, the apartheid state of Palestine, and the genocide that's happening. They don't seem like they are prepared to say what everyone else is saying. And that actually kind of semi-led to what ContraPoints released, which we all know, which was low-key her, like, the end of her channel in many people's eyes.
Full take. And I'm just going to go through this. There's a lot. It's an effort post. So, many leftists feel betrayed because I haven't made a video on Palestine. Do they actually want a ContraPoints video on Palestine? Will they be happy if I get in the bath and pour milk on a mannequin of Benjamin Netanyahu? No. I have posted about Gaza occasionally and have quietly given money to Palestinian aid organizations. But I think that what leftists really want is for me to join their chorus of anger. They sense some hesitation on my part and are judging me very harshly on my presumed opinions. I'd rather be judged on my actual opinions. So here they are. Is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes. Do I feel angry about it? Yes. I also feel a lot of other things.
And the same kind of thing could be said of Abigail Thorn as well. A lot of people jumped to her defense and said, well, she has this new acting career now, she can't speak as freely, which was then quite quickly rebutted with a lot of people way bigger than her, way higher up than her, in the same acting industry, are saying way more than she is. So for someone that was known and had her rise to fame for being in a leftist space, and Philosophy Tube and the fandom behind it, the Patron budget behind it, the funding of all of these projects, for her to not be as critical did come across as quite hollow. And to this day, I've never been a fan of Philosophy Tube in the same way.
Someone replied, I think it's worth noting that Abby is a professional actor and making a capital S statement with how she really feels, as well thought out and compassionate and nuanced as her opinions likely are, would very probably do an extreme amount of damage to her career and would not have much more of an impact than retweeting she has done. I personally expect that she is donating or contributing in other ways privately, and she just replies, a love heart. Obviously does come more across of, I now am in Star Wars and Game of Thrones, and I don't want to jeopardize my career. But I mean, at least she's being kind of upfront about it, and you can kind of tell. You can see why I'm talking about like the failures of RedTube. If we're meant to see these people and put them on like some sort of pedestal for being moral and political, it's just someone there saying, my acting career is more important than having principles on this very specific thing.
Now we'll get to the parasociality of it all later down the line. If you're commenting already saying, but Louise, you need to be more critical of her, trust me, all of this is to come. And equally, if you're going to say, I'm her biggest fan, don't ever talk about her, we'll get to that, okay? Bear with me. I'm just going to try and lay out the facts because there's a lot of people, organizations, series to just cover. So for now, I'm just going to talk as plainly as I can. Subsequent to the Tabernacles video, honestly, nothing she released really did as well. Ironically, her trying to speak on it kind of made things worse, where we get this horrendous clip of her air quoting that there's a genocide happening, which quite rightly left a lot of people with so much to say.
This is a bigger topic than we have time to get into today, but Philosophy Tube's audience has a diversity of political views, and I'm sure some of you will be drawing parallels between the process that the United States went through with American Indians and the process Israel has gone through with Palestinians since it was founded in 1948. Illegal settlements, crimes by settlers tolerated by government, American presidents saying they want to just move in and take over the land. Our question for today is, why is America the way that it is? And today, in America, many people are protesting the actions of the Israeli government. You may have heard people describe Israel as a settler colonial state or as genocidal. And these historical parallels are partly why they say that. I am aware that Israeli scholars have their responses, that the US and Israel are not the only countries to instantiate this pattern or something very close to it, and that a proper treatment of this subject would need to be done at length with due concern for the global rise in anti-Semitic hate crime.
We can't really say she's successful anymore. I would argue she's kind of falling out of relevance. Some of the work she's done is important for sure, but her videos aren't getting the same views. And to me, it does come across that she's not talking about anything important, which after being called out for not talking about anything of crucial importance, kind of has to be a choice in my opinion, but we'll get more onto that later. Her channel as it stands has a very slow growth of subscriber count, which for a channel of her size and of that prestige is considered to be not very successful. Only gaining a few hundred subscribers per month for a channel of 1 million subs is considered subpar. Yes, she's not losing subscribers per se, but flatlining at this level would be considered non-active, not happy, if that makes sense. Her view count is also very low for the level of videos she's putting out. She releases one every so often, so for those to not break 500,000 views or to not get anywhere near 1 million is considered, again, for a channel of 1 million subscribers, kind of not successful. Unfortunately, quite a high bar to meet, I'm sure, and she has a whole team working behind her, but I would consider her channel in this, with all of this information together, like unsuccessful at this point, like off the radar. She's even spoken about this similarly. If you follow her Patron journey, a few years ago in her heyday, she was celebrating a rise in patrons, a large budget which paid for her team, and she was always very visible with her finances via Patron, which I thought was quite admirable. And I think because on the left there is a lot more accountability and responsibility to make sure we're doing things properly. But now we can see that fewer and fewer patrons are sticking around. A lot of people are moving to a free version, and I calculate, like, at minimum she's bringing in, or the company, the Patron budget is making about $10,000 a month, which is still a lot. And I still think for what she's putting out, that to me doesn't really correlate very well. But even that is, like, to run a whole company is not a lot of people, considering the staff she has. So in general, things aren't looking great for PhilosophyTube. But then I also have to say, I'll give my opinions more later, but it's very clear that PhilosophyTube hasn't been her priority for a long time. Like, it hasn't been over Nebula for a long time, let alone her acting career, which is very fair. But again, there's some critiques to say there. Sorry, but they're going to have to come at the end as well. Suffice to say, if you are coming here from the House of the Dragon audience, Abigail Thorn you could consider as someone that was very big on YouTube a few years ago, still has an active channel, but is very much focusing on her acting career, has a Nebula, sponsor thing to worry about as well, and has been in a number of amazing pieces of media. She was in Star Wars, she was in Jericho, House of the Dragon Series 2, she did feature in the last episode, like I'll say, and some other bits and bobs as well. So by no means small potatoes, but not what she once was. And some of her work has been considered as important. I think it was picked for the British Institute and, like, recorded in history. I can't remember the exact wording, but editing me will put up the, like, asset that's needed. And I think she won an award with the Amnesty International as well, which was a crowd voted award. So which shows not only that she has prestige in what she's done, and some of her work has been very important, and it also shows that she has a fandom behind her. But I always like to remind a lot of the audiences and stuff, we can be very critical about what she has or hasn't said about Israel and condemned what's going on out there. I also think, like, let's put her in comparison to, like, anyone on the right or anyone that is actively denying what's happened instead of just ignoring it. Like, that's still bad to not actively talk about Israel-Palestine. A video about that on her channel would have also made so much sense. We could expect that of her for the position she was in. Like, there's nowhere near as bad as, like, Candace Owens, who is an actual anti-Semite, or, even down the line, like, actual bad people on the right are doing far more harm in the world. So I think when we're critical of people on the left, we should also be aware of where they stand in the wider scheme of things, the net positives of the world. Like, you could argue, like, even ContraPoints, people came to the left via their media. Whether they are themselves still where we all are, and whether the Overton window has shifted, is a separate discussion to the net positive that I think creating so many people on the left has done, and radicalizing a lot of people and giving people the words and understanding behind what they are feeling and where they are. I think there is a lot of positive that PhilosophyTube has done, basically. I would not be where I am if I hadn't found PhilosophyTube. I wouldn't have even started this channel. I wouldn't have moved so far left. I wouldn't have fought for different causes. I wouldn't have made so much community. Like, there is so much to say. And yes, is it disappointing that she hasn't spoken about Israel-Palestine? And is it completely changed my outlook of her now? Like we've seen with ContraPoints. Yes, absolutely. Two things can be true and they can affect each other, but two things can be true. Okay, so for anyone that is well aware who Abigail Thorn is but has not kept up with their Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon lore, this section is for you. Game of Thrones, originally 8 seasons long, pretty famous at its time, ended terribly. We're not going to get into that. House of the Dragon is a prequel, technically, set a few hundred years, I think 200 years, before the timeline of Game of Thrones, and it follows the civil war between several of the elite houses, but mostly the Targaryen family. And the Targaryen family, obviously, as a dynasty, have been in power in this realm for several generations. Originally coming from another land, but because they had the power of dragons, they pretty much took over Westeros as we know it and have been in rule since, especially in this timeline. The House of the Dragon as a show follows the downfall of this dynasty at its most powerful. This involves a civil war between two factions within the same family, the Blacks and the Greens, that both have dragons. Therefore, the entire story ends in dragon on dragon fighting, which dramatically reduces the number of dragons that the family holds, and therefore eventually follows the fall of the dynasty in its entirety. We also recently had another prequel, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which followed further down that story, but still before the Game of Thrones series that came out. That followed a kind of extension as to what the Targaryen family becomes down the line when they no longer have the same amount of dragon power that once put them on the throne. We're about to go to season 3. It's about to start. And fun fact, if I remember correctly, a couple of the first episodes we're about to see were originally going to be at the end of season 2, but it was cut short because of budgeting, which is also why season 2 was only 8 episodes and quite short. And it also ended on a really odd note as far as the ending of seasons go. It was very much, it wasn't even a cliffhanger, it was very a flat ending. It was almost like the calm before the storm, before several large storylines come to their climax and before the Battle of the Gullet, I think, which is a huge sea battle that's going to occur at the beginning of season 3, which is very important, and we'll come back to that. So season 2 ended really flatly, with several storylines not quite coming to a natural end, even for a season within a season. We're expecting season 3 to start off with not only a bang, but to also cover quite a lot of ground compared to season 2. Bear in mind the Fire and Blood storybook, which I actually have somewhere. I should get it really, shouldn't I? Bear in mind the material that this is based off, Fire and Blood, by George R. Martin, was originally quite short with this specific section. This covers the entire Targaryen line, all the way from where it first conquered Westeros to kind of down further closer to Game of Thrones. So the actual material in which this civil war, the Dance of the Dragons as it's called, occurs is very short in comparison. I mean, this looks thick, but it's a few chapters within this. So, who does Abigail Thorn play, and what's the relevance to the main story? Well, Abigail Thorn was already in season 2 in the last episode, kind of introducing her character, which again goes to show that it kind of ended on a really weird note. Abigail Thorn plays Sharako Lohar, a kind of piratey character, the leader of the Triarchy, an army that are covered in the story, but again, because the material is quite weak, it's not really expanded out to this much. But they've been featured since the beginning of the series of House of the Dragon. In season 1, we follow Daemon Targaryen in his kind of fight against the Triarchy, based in a selection of islands called the Stepstones. And it's kind of the connection to outside of Westeros, the free cities as they're known, ironically full of slavery, but we'll come back to that another day. They're kind of a perpetual enemy. And then eventually, as far as I can follow, the Triarchy kind of are defeated. They are defeated by Daemon Targaryen, but they're also defeated in a larger sense of the scale. They don't have as much relevance. They're not as much of a problem. In season 2, Rhaenyra Targaryen, who I'm giving you today, calls for a kind of blockade of the Gullet, the area surrounding King's Landing, by boat, by ship, which is aided by the Valerian line, who are based in Driftmark. They're the really cool house that have the kind of Targaryen look imbued with black culture, like dreadlocks. It's played by people of colour, and I think this is a wonderful element to House of the Dragon. It's kind of one of the critiques I had about Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which went down really badly, sadly, on the internet. Anyway, so these two houses, the Valerian line and Targaryen line, or Rhaenyra's faction of the them at least, calls for this blockade. And at the very end of season 2, the Greens faction, currently on the throne, kind of considered the baddies, and I'll get back to why I think that in a second. They are trying to fight against this blockade. So they send one of the Lannisters, Tywin Lannister, one of 2 twin brothers, which can be quite confusing. They send him off almost in kind of like a death mission, kind of like get rid of him almost, to go and meet with the Triarchy, this army, not knowing who they really are meeting with. Now, I say that the Greens are the enemy, in my opinion, to this story because they represent the patriarchal old ways of doing things, never have a woman on the throne, women should be seen, not heard, deal with family matters. And that's kind of not only canon in the story, but also the wide perception of this. Whereas Rhaenyra Targaryen is going to be claiming to be the first woman on the throne. She also has another character, one of my favourites in the series, Rhaenys Targaryen, who is known as the Queen That Never Was, on her side. If you know, you know. So they're much more the progressive faction, as it were. There's a lot of open secrets of them being, some people being gay, but staying in their marriage for the sake of their family and stuff like that. And it's like an open secret, and it's well known, but it's moved on and it's accepted. It's kind of known as the more progressive family. Abigail Thorn plays Sharako Lohar, who is the new leader of this Triarchy army, who the Tywin Lannister is going to meet with. And he's asking the head of the Triarchy, the whole Triarchy, to use their fleet, their new army, to come down to battle to fight against the blockade happening in the Battle of the Gullet. And I haven't read the rest of this, so this is all going to be new to me. But as far as I can tell, this is the next battle that's going to happen at the beginning of season 3. And it's going to be quite a big one. Whilst Abigail Thorn has already been in it at the end of season 2, her character is also going to be huge for season 3. But what really struck me here is that she is going to technically be on the side of the Greens, fighting with the Lannisters, a very patriarchal and regressive side of this story. And I'll go into why I think that's even more problematic down the line when I get a little bit more into Abigail Thorn's character. But for now, just be aware of, like, she's on that side of things. She'll be fighting with the Aemon Targaryens, the Criston Cole, and Alicent Hightower. Now, an important fact to add is that at the end of season 2, when Lohar appears, she, I'm going to say, is canon misgendered. We don't know too much about her details, and it's kind of implied that it's going to be spoken about down the line. But her army of men that trust her and respect her use he pronouns.
The commander of our fleet must agree to go with you. His name is Lohar. The sailors are fiercely loyal.
And she refers to herself kind of as not that, but maybe she doesn't. I think I've actually heard Abigail Thorn referring to her as she, her, so that's why I'm using that now. There is some reason why we would believe that. So the kind of vibe is that she maybe is a trans woman canon in the story, and the men around her are misgendering her incorrectly, or there is a chance that she's like gender fluid and she is uses all pronouns, doesn't matter about them. That would be progressive too. But so there's a lot more I want to say about that. I'm going to kind of allude to where I think it's going to go and why I think that could be done really badly, and I'm hoping it's done well. But for now, that's kind of all you need to know about her character itself. She's very aloof. She's very different to the Game of Thrones style, which we see is why Abigail Thorn actually got picked to be this character. She decided to act in the auditions very different to the Game of Thrones style, and allegedly that worked for her. So that should be all you need to know about the House of the Dragon prequel and this latest role that she is going to be acting in. And anyone that knows about House of the Dragon, if you find this video, let me know how I did. This was all kind of off the top of my head as well, so I hope I didn't get anything wrong, but I'm a bit of a big fan, so do a kind of like actually vibe, like comment actually it's not this, it's this, like that would be hilarious. Let me know what you think. So why am I so worried about the character Sharako Lohar? Why is it bothering me? Almost to the point that, like, low-key, it's ruining my excitement for the build-up of season 3. Well, let's get into it, because there are a few reasons that are to do with the character themselves, as well as the Abigail Thorn-ness of it all. So, like Abigail Thorn said in one of her live streams, she discussed going up for the role of Lohar and the kind of vibe that she brought to the rehearsals and how that has shaped the character now.
Because I didn't want to give them something they'd already seen before. I didn't want to I knew everyone else was going to go in and be like, oh, Game of Thrones, oh, Game of Thrones. And so I went in, and Ryan was like, yeah, what we want to do with this character is bring something entirely new to the world of House of the Dragon. Like, we want to bring something fresh and new and original, an energy that we haven't seen before. And I was like, oh, great, perfect, fantastic, yeah, cool, because that's great, because that's exactly what I prepared.
And this is all well and good, and obviously that's an amazing thing, and I'm really happy with her and the character. But I think that freshness and that newness of the character, the new style, comes across from someone that's been a long-term fan of the entire series, of both the original and this prequel. I can't help but attach that newness with her and her acting. And if I'm honest, I haven't seen her in enough other stuff to know whether that's actually her doing it through skill or if that's coming across as not able to connect with the original material of Game of Thrones and be in the universe. And of course, Game of Thrones has quirky characters. It's not like this is the first character, but it's almost like too modern for me as an acting style. Like Sharako Lohar, it feels almost like a placement of a modern day character within the universe, almost like the Ed Sheeran cameo from the Game of Thrones series. If you know, you know.
It's a new one.
That was appalling. It gives that vibe. It's giving a splash of the energy that's what ruined season 7 and season 8 of Game of Thrones for a lot of people.
It's really good.
I can't help but kind of feel the same vibe from the character Sharako Lohar so far. An example being in one of the first lines, she says the word philosophy, which obviously emotes for so many people philosophy tube.
JP says, was the philosopher line your idea? No, actually, that was complete coincidence and could not be changed because of the writer's strike.
What sort of man are you?
Beg your pardon?
A poet? A philosopher?
I knew when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, Philosophy Chief fans are going to like this one. And I tried to explain this to the producer. I was like, people are going to like this line. And they were like, why? And I was like, I have a YouTube, don't worry about it.
And that's allegedly a coincidence. However, even if Abigail Thorn's claim that it was a coincidence in the script and she says, oh, my original fandom are going to love this, somewhat big-headedly, I will add, that should have been written out. I'm sorry, they should not have kept that in there. It's the equivalent of Matt Smith, who was obviously Doctor Who for a long time, calling for aid when Rhaenyra is in giving birth, and like the scenes like, call for a maester, Rhaenyra needs a doctor. A doctor? Doctor Who? Or like, a doctor, I am the doctor. Like, it's that level of connecting to another piece of media, even if it is a coincidence, and it should have been taken out because of what that does. It pulls you right out of the universe and the world.
The doctor will see you now!
There are so many other things that in the context of that scene, Sharako Lohar could accuse Tywin Lannister of being. What sort of man are you? A poet, a philosopher? He looks like neither of those things. They aren't really as well known in the universe. She could have said, are you a maester? Are you a lord? The poet and a philosopher to me come across so fake. And she's alleging that was already in there, but I can't understand why it would be. And if it is, why wasn't it changed? Why wasn't it taken out? Because that to me is just too real. It's too stupid. And equally, this fresh new character, this fresh new acting style that she's boasting having brought to the table, I think it's very dangerous to give that to an openly trans actress playing somewhat gender fluid or perhaps transgender character.
The commander of our fleet must agree to go with you. His name is Lohar. The sailors are fiercely loyal.
Especially when on the side of the notoriously patriarchal faction, the Hightowers, the Lannisters. They've canon in script, season 1, season 2 said, women should be in the home. There's no space on the throne for a woman. It should be ruled by men. That's not the kind of faction that I want to see a new gender fluid character experimenting with their gender and pushing boundaries in, unless potentially it does good. But even that in the universe of the context of what we're talking about seems very disjointed, almost distasteful. And I wonder if it's going to come across somewhat tokenized of Abigail Thorn and her character to see this kind of pushing of boundaries in a space where the boundaries aren't even being pushed in any other way. Why would they suddenly accept some gender fluid wild character, and if they do, it will come across very false, because there are so many other opportunities for these characters to have grown, for Aemon Targaryen to not be sexist, for the Lannister character. There's a scene in season 1 where he literally says, like, there's a reason women don't go to war, because they're too busy getting ready, they're going to be late, or something like that. Like, canon sexism.
This is why men wage war, because a woman would never be ready for the battle in time.
Those characters haven't shown any room to grow and develop past those issues. Why would we suddenly throw them a gender fluid character? And then if they do, either completely accept it and they're like, yeah, I love Sharako even though she's trans, and it's like, it's kind of tokenized version of like progressive, or they don't. And then what have we achieved here other than adding a new element to a character and then canon showing it to not be accepted in the society? And it's like, well, okay, what was this for? Why are we here? So for me, this kind of style of the character of Sharako Lohar, and the fact that she's also played by Abigail Thorn, really pulls me out of the universe personally, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. Let me know in the comments if you agree. But equally, for Abigail Thorn, I'm so happy to see this happening for her career. Like, she should have so done a video about more important things down the line with Philosophy Tube, but that was 11 months ago now that the Tabernacle released his video. All of the stuff with Philosophy Tube aside, like, Abigail Thorn as a person, I'm so happy for her. She's like, this is going to be career making for her.
Hey, I had a feeling that the internet was going to like this character, because, you know, trans woman. I'm a trans woman. The character may or may not be. The show doesn't say, but I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure my online following is gonna make this a big deal. Sure enough, I was right. So when the press screenings went out, I got an email from Diego, the head of marketing at HBO, and said, Abigail, we weren't really planning on including you in a lot of the press for season 2. We'd had that discussion already, by the way. I said totally fine. She's in one episode. You know, they put the leads in for the most of the press interviews. I was like not demanding that they put me on the red carpet or anything. But I got an email from him after the presses went out saying, hey, we've got a lot of outlets that want to talk to you about Sharako. And I was like, let's go then.
If I could be so bold, like, Emma Darcy is non-binary, and that's been covered in media, and that's a part of their journey. And the conversation about Emma Darcy being non-binary and playing Rhaenyra is already happening. If I could be so honest, Abigail Thorn seems to be taking too much of the spotlight in the promo, in the space, that even Emma Darcy is arguably the lead of the whole entire series isn't even taking up. When I'm looking at the promo shots, I'm seeing Abigail Thorn flexing, which is great, do that, but like, Emma Darcy has a little bit more grace to them, that they're not even like trying to take the spotlight. Maybe that's just the character, and maybe this has all been discussed, and maybe the PR team want this to happen, and maybe Emma and Abigail are kai-kaiing in their besties. But like, I can't help but inject my own opinion into this in spite of myself. I can even have these conversations with my husband and say, look, I'm being so parasocial. I know I am, but I can't help but feel the feelings I'm feeling.
And that's not a philosophical argument, but it's very powerful.
Hot take. I don't think Abigail Thorn is the best actress out there.
There's actually a philosopher called Lorianne Paul who says that having children can't be a rational decision because it changes you. And it changes what you value. And so you can't really weigh the reasons for and against, because when you get to the other side, you might not value things in the same way that you used to do. But I mean, weighing reasons for and against, that's what the show is meant to be about. That's Philosophy Tube. I don't know how to make up my mind, and I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm sorry, I've seen a few of her live streams. I've seen it in Queer Media. I've seen enough of her live streams, and I've seen enough from Philosophy Tube to see when she is acting.
I'm proud of it. Hi, Diana. That's really kind. Diana, I know I've always asked this, but Are you really sure? That's a lot of money. You know, as long as you've got what you need, first, you know. But as long as angel investors have enough money for their own bills, you know, as long as angels can afford their own wings and to keep their halos on, gosh, you're too kind.
And to see when, personally, there are professionals out there that can do a better job. I know that's harsh, and I'm sorry. Not everyone in the Game of Thrones universe are fantastic actors. I don't personally, you know, claim to know how to do any better. I'm not saying I can be any better, but I can't help but see the Abigail Thorn in Sharako Lohar. And that's a question of skill and production, sure, but is that because I know about Abigail Thorn, or is that because of the ability of her as an actress? Whew, that's tea. But because I know of Abigail Thorn, because I know of the ridiculous attempts to cover the Israel-Palestine situation and quoting when she's talking about the genocide happening and it coming across so bad taste and just coming across badly, I can't help but remember and feel all of those things when I see her on screen playing Sharako Lohar. And I fear that it's going to ruin House of the Dragon for me. Just like I would never watch Harry Potter because it relates to J.K. Rowling. Just because I would never watch anything with Gal Gadot in it. We say a lot of, can we separate the artist from the art? Can we separate the actress from the act? I don't think we can when the actress is still about. Let me know if that's not the popular opinion. I can't help but know the Abigail Thorn behind the Sharako Lohar. The thorn in my side. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I just had to say it.
That's why I want to include you all in this and do these live streams, because my YouTube audience has been such a huge part of this journey. So yeah, thank you.
Now I want to talk about the parasociality of it all, because Abigail Thorn as a person is, as we know, completely different to Philosophy Tube as an entity, as an idea on the internet. I do not know Abigail Thorn. I met her for a brief 2 seconds, but I don't obviously claim to know her really, or her thoughts or her feelings or everything behind the scenes. There's a million things we don't know. So Abigail Thorn as a person deserves all of her success in her acting career. Everything she's done, all the net positives she's done with Philosophy Tube still hold, even if she's not really relevant anymore, is lacking behind the times. And even if the Overton window has shifted to the point that she's no longer considered the beacon on the left that she once was, or Philosophy Tube was, and she was the creator behind it. Israel and Palestine, the situation that happened and has been happening for years, has broken a lot of people's brains and has shown a lot of how people really think if you scratch behind the surface. It's separated the neoliberals from the fascists, from the socialists, and we have the remaining people in our fight for justice and what's right that we do. We've lost some greats. We really have. And apparently we've gained Graham Plattner, which we'll cover in another episode. Oh my God. Like I said earlier, and I still do believe, Philosophy Tube as a channel is a net positive. Even what ContraPoints put out is a net positive. So before we tackle the enigma that is the parasociality connecting to Abigail Thorn, let's just address the fact that I personally believe Philosophy Tube has done more good for the left, for society, than if it hadn't existed. Unfortunately, it could have done so much more, and I think maybe that's what we're mourning, the potential of what Philosophy Tube could have grown on to be if the focus had remained on Philosophy Tube, if thought-provoking video essays about why Israel needs to stop doing what it's doing what good that could have done, you know? So maybe that's what we're mourning here, the loss of possibility. A side tangent, but we don't know to what extent this has to do with connections with Nebula or the wider acting industry, connections to jobs that Abigail Thorn specifically is doing, or anyone connected in her team is doing. But I do personally, in my opinion, get a sense that there was a little bit of selling out, and there was a little bit of silence on the Israel situation because of, you know, the opportunities that might be lost along the way. And that to me is selling out. It's choosing upward mobility. It's choosing personal wealth and gain against the people that don't have a choice and can't fight for their own causes at this moment in time, when the end goal is that they should be able to. People in Palestine should be able to create their own liberation, and one thing we can do on the West is to fight for that right for them to do that. At the very least, that's what we should be doing. And we should always put that before our own upward mobility. Now, where it does get messy is that she said herself how her success in her acting career and her upward mobility has been directly connected, if not funded and fueled, by the success that she had with her basically crowd-funded channel PhilosophyTube, and the money that was gained through ad revenue from people watching and the Patron budget that people physically gave her.
So many of you bought Nebula subscriptions and bought tickets to come and see The Prince, that even though it was kind of a gamble, a streaming service paying for a play, we were actually making profit on The Prince before rehearsals even ended.
As she said herself, people bought tickets to see The Prince, and it did well successfully. It was a commercial success. And because of that, she was able to leverage that with her career and say, hey, I have this audience behind me. I am successful in these endeavors. I can be successful in these. Where it gets messy for me is that, she does quite literally owe her success to the audience that she gained and garnered. And does that mean that we get to hold her to an accountability through that? I don't know. When you pay into someone's Patron budget, you don't get to control their lives. Of course not. I've personally had a couple of fans that, because they paid into, my Patron for a small period of time, they felt like they could do basically more than guide me with what videos they'd like to see, and started to kind of tell me how to think and what to say, which I do think gets messy. And that's at my size, tiny little channel in comparison to PhilosophyTube. I can only imagine what it must feel like to have hundreds of thousands of people telling you what to say, or hundreds, maybe thousands of people paying into every month with some expectation of what that should mean. Equally, we also always have the final decision of what we do and don't fund. And the fact that Abigail Thorn or PhilosophyTube has fewer patrons now than it did before kind of speaks volumes as to how people think about what she is and isn't covering. And we always will have that say. We will always be able to withdraw our support and funding if that's what we want to do. When I met her, it was at Trans Pride, I think 2023. There are so many famous people there as well that I met, and I was just starting out this channel. It looked completely different as a channel than it does now. I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck. But I was inspired by ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube and Noah Samson, all of the greats, Khadija Mbo, who we would consider RedTube adjacent, Cornbread Tube, similar stuff like that. I remember I said to her, I was like, you're the reason I started a YouTube channel. And she laughed and said, ha ha ha, I'm so sorry. Which I always remember to this day as quite funny. Because it is a lot of hard work and it's nowhere near what people think. And I went into it so blindly, so naively. So yeah, I have that. That's the extent I know her. I snapped a picture before she did a speech, and that's it. I've never spoken to her after that. I have no connection to her other than that. I would never presume to know the actual person behind the channel that is PhilosophyTube, and the media and the actress and everything. So all that to say, putting the bigger picture into perspective, I think it's time I touch some grass. What do you think? The natural conclusion to come of all of this is maybe Sharako Lohar's character will ruin House of the Dragon for me. At the end of the day, it is a case of boo-hoo, first world problems. People are dying, Barbara, get over it, you can't have your treats. Your favourite TV show isn't going to be what you want it to be. Wah wah. And I do fundamentally believe that at the core of all of this. And hey, it can't be worse than the Game of Thrones ending anyway. If you know, you know. I guess I do just have to get over it, and we have to get used to not having the treats that we're used to. And that's a really sad place to end the video essay on, but it is genuinely where I got to. The world is not the same, and it's changing every year, and it's getting objectively worse. There will be a time when the production costs involved of making a show are too great, and they're all made for a profit. So when they stop making profit, they'll stop making the shows. That's why the ending of Game of Thrones is what it was. So as cheesy and corny as it is, I'm already getting myself used to the idea that it's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be shit. I'm not gonna like it. Remember that I enjoyed the books instead, and reading the books and escaping in those was way more entertaining and, quite frankly, healthy for me. I haven't said this too much on the channel, but Daenerys Targaryen, a character in A Song of Ice and Fire, the novel set, was a huge inspiration to me. A line she always says, "If I look back, I am lost," kept me going through my transition to an extent I will never stop talking about. I remember spending summers sitting in the park reading just her chapters, just for confidence and just to gain some momentum through a really difficult time for me. No amount of bad season 8 endings to Game of Thrones can take that away from me. No amount of bad writing of Daenerys Targaryen's character can take that away from me. At the end of the day, yes, House of Dragon, the show might suck, but we will always have the original copy. We will always have the universe of Westeros and the greater world that we can keep ourselves and we can do with what we want. And I wish Abigail Thorn all the best. As a person I've never met more than once. Good for her. I hope she's thriving. I hope she improves. And I hope the series is everything she wants it to be, and I hope that the fandom enjoy it as well. When we say touch grass, I think it's become such a kind of phrase now that people forget what it means, but I did literally have to go to the garden centre. My husband and I want to grow herbs because they're really expensive to get hold of here, and if we can grow them ourselves, we can use them ourselves, we can give them to our community as well. We can build relationships by gift giving, which is a huge thing in the Japanese rural areas. We can use them in cooking, we can improve our food, we can save money, we can be self-sustainable just a little bit more. All of these things are way more important than some random actress that comes across kind of fake on live streams that dealt with talking about Israel and Palestine terribly and is irrelevant now. So, if you made it this far, I really hope that you enjoy House of the Dragon if you're here to watch that, and if you are here because you know who Abigail Thorn is, let me know what you think about Philosophy Tube and how things were and how things are and what she should and shouldn't be doing. What do you think about your parasociality to her and if it mirrors mine? But as someone that created their channel because of being inspired by her and her art, to see how things are now, honestly I'm shocked. I didn't think it was going to go down like this. I actually thought better of her. The real parasocial truth behind it, I thought highly of her. I thought better of her than who she's shown to be, really. Which just goes to show you never really know the person online. You don't know me. Chances are you never will. But I hope I never let you down. I hope I never let you feel the same disappointment that she made me feel. Oh, it's a bit of a sad ending. Oh God. Is it now that I plug my Patron? Like, what the fuck do I do now? I don't think I can. Anyway.
Jennifer Nagel, thank you for that super chat, and thank you also, Matriarchetype. Cool name.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. Just to let you know, this is not me trying to look like a Japanese person or anything. This is actually me trying to look like Rhaenyra Targaryen when she, I think it's like the red seeding or something, where she lets certain people access the dragons. I won't spoil it if you want to see it. But this is shockingly close for what I managed to throw together in my wardrobe. I do look in front of this door. Quite inappropriate. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope that I covered the situation with Abigail Thorn as well as I can. It's a pretty tricky situation, let's be so for real. I personally really lost respect for the channel. It's not relevant anymore. It hasn't covered Israel-Palestine in any depth for a channel that really is, like I say, relevant for them to do. So it's very prominent that they didn't. But yeah, as a previous fan, as someone that met her and as someone on the scene, I thought I could bring some light to kind of the wider scope of things, and I hope that landed well. Let me know in the comments if maybe there was something you disagreed with. I'm sure there will be some of her fans still around, still even in BreadTube. And I hope, unlike the ContraPoints community where it's quite toxic and they just don't really listen to anything, I hope we can at least have a dialogue as well. And then, yeah, anyone doesn't understand anything about Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, you probably know, at least if you watch my channel, I'm a huge fan of both of those. And I hope I gave some context that was helpful towards kind of the build up or everything, because like I covered earlier in the video, she's on the promo because of her fandom. So even though she's a smaller character, she's kind of like plastered everywhere. So hopefully I brought some information and light to that. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next one. I wish I could go out like this. Bye.